I woke up with an absurd question hammering in my mind. What is 2 plus 2? I couldn't speak or open my eyes. The pain was diffuse, and the confusion absolute. I was tied to an oval bed, surrounded by tubes and sensors. 2 bodies lay dead nearby, mummies without smell or life. Next to me, a computer interrogated me with cold patience, without answer to my silent desperation. The world was limited to blinding white light and blurry shadows I barely distinguished. Every movement was a battle against weakness. My muscles were strong, but my will faltered. Who was I? Where was I? The only certainty was that I was alone, trapped in a sea of unknowns. Little by little, my eyes got used to the light, and the silence of the ship enveloped me like a cold mantle. I tried to sit up, but every attempt was stopped by mechanical arms watching me with inhuman precision. Breathing became a conscious, painful act, and hunger a new, unexpected sensation. They fed me a brown paste, whose taste was the first sign of life I remembered. My fragmented mind began to reconstruct pieces. An email message, the mysterious Petrova line crossing the solar system, a sun slowly dying. Everything seemed like a cosmic puzzle without pieces. I discovered I was not on Earth, not even in a known place, but somewhere far out in space. The outside world offered no answers, only a dark abyss more terrifying than any inner void. The hatch leading out of the chamber where I lay seemed a portal to an uncertain destiny, and although fear paralyzed my muscles, something deeper pushed me, the urgent need to understand, to survive, to fully awaken. In that timeless space, in that memoryless beginning, was born the spark of a mission that could save or doom all humanity. But I didn't know it yet. I only knew I had to get up, because darkness does not forgive those who remain asleep. What's your name? The computer asked insistently. I don't know, I answered, and I knew that was only the beginning. Second part, The Call of a Dying Sun. The message came to my consciousness like a flash through the fog. The sun, our beacon of life, was dying. It was not a distant or far-off phenomenon. It was a tangible, palpable threat that would drag the earth into a perpetual winter, an ice age that would extinguish everything in its path. The signs were clear and terrifying. A Petrova line, an infrared anomaly stealing energy from the sun, leaving it weaker and weaker. Marissa, a longtime friend, revealed to me the magnitude of the disaster as desperation colored her words. Science had no quick answers, and the world was preparing to hear an official announcement from the president. Humanity faced its twilight, and I, a stranger even to myself, was implicated to the core. Sitting at that improvised laboratory table in the ship, I reviewed the data I knew without understanding how I had learned it. I knew physics, astronomy, stellar cycles. I knew gravity, matter, time. But I couldn't remember my name or why I was there. Incoherence attacked me, and with every new fact, the weight of the mission crushed me a little more. The dying sun was not just a star going out. It was a sentence, a countdown for all life in the solar system. And the clock had started ticking without pause. As the cold of the void seeped through the walls of the ship, the truth emerged with devastating clarity. I was the last hope, the final piece in a desperate plan that crossed the boundaries of time and space. But before I could act, I had to recover more than my memories. I had to rebuild the humanity within me and find the strength to face the impossible. What would you do if you knew the fate of your world was in your hands? I asked myself quietly, while silence answered. The sun kept dying. And with me, the last flame of hope was about to ignite. Third part, Between Tubes and Questions. The days on the ship were a mixture of forced rituals and fragmented discoveries. My body, though strong, was trapped in a temple of steel and tubes, watched over by mechanical arms that cleaned, fed, and cared for every movement. Communication with the computer was my only constant, a clumsy dance of simple questions and robotic answers, like a child relearning how to speak. Recovering my memory was a battle in itself. Fragments of emails, distant conversations, and equations floated in my mind. The image of a ship called Hail Mary, a suicide mission sent into space to save Earth, slowly took shape. But doubts gnawed at me. Why me? Why was I alone? Where were my companions? Every small advance brought a mix of relief and terror. I could move my arms, then my legs. I could speak with difficulty and finally understand the complex systems around me. But loneliness weighed heavy, like a dark burden threatening to crush me at any moment. The laboratory, with its alien and human instruments, was a fascinating and terrifying enigma. There, among test tubes and flickering screens, I had to find the key to stop the invisible threat consuming the sunlight. "What is the cube root of 8? The computer asked me relentlessly, like an impatient teacher. 2, I answered, clinging to logic amid the chaos. But science alone was not enough. The mission demanded more than knowledge. It needed courage, ingenuity, and the will to risk everything. And I, a man lost in my own mind, had to be that man. In that crucible of isolation and discovery, the line between despair and hope blurred. And though the future was uncertain, one thing was clear. The mission had begun, and there was no turning back." Fourth part, The Impossible Alliance. When Rocky appeared, everything changed. He was not human or even remotely similar, but in his silence and gestures, I discovered an unlikely ally, a being who was also fighting against the same threat chasing me. His body, a structure of rocks and metals, contrasted with my fragile flesh, but his intelligence and courage matched any biological limit. The encounter was disconcerting. We had to learn to communicate from scratch, unraveling a language built with gestures, sounds, and symbols. Each conversation was an act of patience and mutual discovery. With Rocky, I understood that the astrophage threat was not just human. It was a universal crisis that united distant species in a common destiny. We worked side by side, sharing knowledge and resources, combining human science with Iridian technology. Rocky's ship, his world, and his way of life were a universe apart, but cooperation was a bridge between galaxies, a beacon in the darkness. "We're not so different," I once told him, as we gazed together at the immensity of the cosmos. "We're just survivors." The alliance with Rocky was a catalyst that breathed new hope. Together we discovered the weaknesses of the astrophage, designed strategies, and, above all, found in each other a companionship that eased the deep loneliness threatening to devour us. But we also knew time was running out. Every advance brought new risks, and the pressure grew like a shadow spreading over us. Still, in the midst of that abyss, the friendship between two distant species became the brightest light we could find. Fifth part, The Abyss of Solitude. The shadows closed in tightly. Every failure, every unexpected obstacle sank me deeper into an abyss that threatened to devour not only the mission but also my will. Loneliness was a tangible weight, a cold that pierced to the bone, even with Rocky by my side. Technical problems multiplied and options narrowed. One mistake could mean the end of everything, the extinction of Earth, the disappearance of a universe I was just beginning to understand. Doubts haunted me in my most vulnerable moments, the guilt of leaving my children behind, the fear of failing when everything depended on me. The disease of uncertainty was worse than any infection. Trapped in a tiny ship, light years from home, my mind became a minefield of painful memories and unanswered questions. The routine of tests and calculations, of pieces that didn't fit, became a daily torment. Why? I asked myself more than once. Why me? Rocky, with his heavy silence, seemed to share that burden. But even in his rocky gaze, there was a glimmer of hope, a constant reminder that I was not alone in this battle. The abyss was deep, but giving up was not an option, because if we fell, there would be no more stories, no tomorrow. All that was left was to face it, with all the despair and determination I could muster. Sixth part, Light in the Stellar Darkness. The final confrontation was not only against a tangible enemy, but against the very nature of fate itself. Facing the relentless threat of the astrophage, every decision, every calculation, became an act of life or death for two worlds. The ship vibrated with tension, science, and hope, blended in a delicate balance. With Rocky by my side, we crafted the definitive strategy, combining our technology and knowledge in a last desperate attempt to save the sunlight and, with it, life in the solar system. The feeling of walking a tightrope, where any misstep could trigger catastrophe, kept us on high alert. Moments stretched and compressed in a frantic dance of analysis, maneuvers, and trials. Sacrifice was not just a possibility, but a constant shadow haunting our thoughts. And yet, every small advance brought us closer to the possibility of redemption. "This is our last move," I said, looking at Rocky. "There is no turning back." And in that unlikely alliance between two species, in that blend of science and willpower, appeared the light that could dispel the stellar darkness. A spark of hope in the midst of the abyss. Seventh part. The Price of Hope. The journey had come to an end, but the cost was deeper than I imagined. The light we managed to ignite to save Earth and Eridani not only dispelled the threat of the astrophage, but revealed the true price of hope: sacrifice, loss, and the acceptance that no hero emerges unscathed from their own epic. Ryland Grace, transformed by solitude, knowledge, and friendship with Rocky, understood that his mission was much more than a scientific task or a political commission. It was an internal journey toward redemption, toward the recognition of his humanity amid the vastness of the cosmos. As he contemplated the stellar horizon, a mixture of melancholy and peace enveloped him. He had gained more than survival. He had found a purpose, a meaning to the darkness. "Is it worth it?" he asked himself silently. The answer lay in the echo of the life that could now continue beating. Earth would keep turning, stars would keep shining, and he, forever changed, had sparked the flame that kept hope alive. The price had been high, but hope always comes at a cost. And in that cost, the future began to write a new story. End of Project Hail Mary.